I didn't plan anything for like the little small
Oh,
talks
I
that we
have
do.
something. Sorry.
What do you got for me, man?
So, have you heard of this term "back to blue"?
Oh, back the blue? Of
Yeah.
course. It's Oh, I know exactly what you're going to talk about. Back the blue is a saying that's made to support our brave men and women in law enforcement who put their lives on the line every day. And when people want to hold them responsible for the lives they take, we say no. They don't have to be
just
held
back
responsible.
to blue.
Yes,
You know, some might think
yeah.
it means backing Blue's Clues, but that would be much better than what this actually is.
Which we are. Blues
Yeah.
Clues matter, as we all know.
Yeah, that's right. And I bring this up because there is a NYPD officer who died in a town near me, and they decided to have like this big funeral for him, right? This like big ceremony. They were gonna, some might even call it a parade. They were gonna like block a bunch of streets off. They were gonna have thousands of like police officers come. And,
Each of them makes a float based on different themes. Yes, of course.
they had like a party clown making like cop balloons. It was pretty cool. No, and they decided to do this, right? And they actually shut down 2 schools because they were going to be blocking all the streets, and you know, like they do for police officers. And this police officer was killed by a drunk driver, which, you know, that sucks. And obviously,
yeah, from
not
what I
gonna,
understand, yeah, it was, you know, it was a tragic death. You know, it was all over the news and shit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
it
fucking
sucks.
support a drunk driver.
Yeah.
Like, fuck them. They're an
Yeah.
asshole. They shouldn't have killed somebody, you know? And, like, his death sucks. And I know he had 2 little kids and he was married, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I'm not here to talk shit about, you know, about who he is, you know, even if I fucking hate the cops. But what I'm here to talk about is the fact that, so there's this nursery, right? And it's next door to, I guess, a fire station. And they wanted to use his parking lot to like basically like hang this giant flag, right? Like between like multiple trucks. And they were also going to use it as an overflow lot for people going to this funeral, this ceremony. And the guy initially said no. And you know, some people might think that's kind of heartless. He's a white man, the guy who owns the nursery. He never said anything about being anti-cop, but it is the week of Mother's Day, right? And I think it's safe to say that probably the busiest week of the year for his job, for his business, is probably Mother's Day. You know, people.
I mean, I wouldn't know,
plans and
Ty,
stuff.
but from what I understand, many people do still have moms.
Oh shit!
And
Sorry,
they do
man.
they do enjoy
It's coastal.
they do enjoy buying flowers for their
Yeah,
mothers
yeah.
these days.
If your mom were still
Okay.
here, you might get her a
Sorry.
plant.
I haven't
You may
been a
even-
son for so long.
You may even go to this nursery. So, you know, the guy said no. And basically the local community fucking bullied the shit out of him. And all the local, like, online groups and Facebook groups and all this shit, they all bullied him and said they were going to fucking get him closed down, and no one was ever going to shop there again. And, you know, if he doesn't back the blue, then he's an enemy. And this was going on, and, like, became like a whole thing where he actually had to like block the parking lot with his own truck so that people wouldn't park in there anyway. And like they were going back and forth, and I think like 2 days went by and he finally like got bullied into saying yes. So he came out and he apologized, and he said something along the lines of like, you know, it was just a knee-jerk reaction, you know, it's just, you know, we're during the pandemic, you know, I lost a lot of business because of COVID, and, you know, I'm just trying to survive. And, you know, the idea of shutting down for 2 days for this ceremony was just, you know, was a lot. Because 2 days, they want him to basically shut his parking lot down for 2 days so they can park this fucking flag there and stuff. And, you know, he was like, I was worried about my business. So, you know, I'm sorry. I'm not anti-cop. I just, you know, I was just thinking about that. And people are still fucking not over it. They're like too little, too late. You know, you're done. Like, people are really just fucking bashing this guy. And so they had this big funeral yesterday. They closed off several roads in my area. They had like giant flags like hanging all over from like trucks all over the place, and like the whole thing just seems really ridiculous to me, right? So first of all, our taxpayer money is going towards, you know, basically funding all these cops to do this. And again, it's a tragic, you know, death, but like if you or I were killed by a drunk driver, would they do this for us? Probably not, right? I I mean, I don't know. Maybe they would for you.
For me, yes, they absolutely would. For you, Ty, you mean nothing to
probably
the community.
not. No, I agree.
We're all
I mean
aware.
nothing. They fucking hate me.
Of this.
The community hates me. But and it's like they're always like, well, he's a hero. He put his life on the line. Okay, so he fucking knew he might die. So it's even less of a reason to do this shit. If I get killed, I'm not trying to save lives. I'm just trying to go to work, man, or like pick up dinner. So that's like
the way I see it. If I were to get into the mindset of a cop, right, is you serve and protect, you uphold the law so that people can go on living their lives. So whereas let's say I'm a cop and I die in the line of duty, or I'm a cop and I die at all, right? I would not want my funeral or my memorial to be such an inconvenience to the town around me, in a time when small businesses are struggling so much. I would not want my name to be used to bully a small business owner or to shut down schools, or, in my mind, I lay my life down every day for the American dream so that a kid can go to school and get that education instead of having to not get it because, while people want to show their respects, and that's an amazing thing, it doesn't have to be a spectacle. Let the man's legacy speak for himself.
Well said. I mean, that's exactly how I feel. Why are we going to, put someone's livelihood in danger or, totally uproot a family's day? What if there's no one home to take care of those kids and now they don't have school? So the parents have to figure out, are they going to stay home from work? Are they going to hire a babysitter? What are they going to do? And there's just so many things about it that I'm just like, this is ridiculous. And my last thought was, where the hell are all these cops? Like, are they all off duty? Or are they just like, what, fuck it, like, good luck with crime today, we're all going to this funeral? Because there was like thousands of them. I'm like, man, if I was a criminal, I would have fucking
crime time.
Dude, I would have gone fucking ape shit, man. I would have been like, let's do this.
It was like in Avatar: The Last Airbender when Sozan's comet allows firebenders to be at their strongest. That would have been the day to commit the most crime.
I don't get the reference, but
all the Avatar: The Last Airbender listener do. I said listener because out of all of you, one of you probably has
only
watched
one of you
it.
is. But yeah, it's just like I'm like, damn, like they I guess crime isn't so bad. I want to be like, do we really need all these cops if they all have time to come to this funeral? Because it doesn't seem like we do. But man, you got to see like the post people are putting. Like, one person was like, "This is just like after 9/11, the communities come together. We haven't done this in a long time. Where we love everyone. Black, white, male, female, gay, straight, Muslim." And I was like, whoa. After 9/11, you're saying there wasn't a bunch of fucking racism towards Muslims? Because we know there was. So that's some bullshit, first of all. But yeah, the posts are ridiculous. They're just like, this is, we back the blue forever. I mean, a true hero has died. And my favorite was this one girl's like, a wonderful man has died. He was a real savior. I didn't know him, but I'm just like, so how do you know he's so wonderful?
Like John Walker, even though I never met the original Captain America, I feel like we're brothers.
Yep, exactly. I feel like I would have liked this guy if I knew him.
That ideology is very toxic, as we know, and it it stinks that I just think as a country our self-esteem is so low that we will back state-funded stormtroopers or murderers or whatever you want to call them because it makes us feel like we're free when we're really not. And this goes into last week's housekeeping perfectly. It goes into today's conversation perfectly as well, because I think we're going to have a lot to say about law enforcement in general. But yeah, just the ideology surrounding law enforcement is very toxic in that you either support us or you don't, and it doesn't matter who this cop was, what they did, and even if they were a good person and a good cop and everything, like we have to all of a sudden treat it as if it's a national tragedy. And I'm not saying not to, but there are those people who put it on scale with something like 9/11 or or some world-changing event. And obviously, I believe that every person matters, but I think that person is just being put. That person is another bit of kindling to throw into the flame of that ideology. A year from now, that his name won't matter to these people. But every time a cop dies, they're gonna say that's why we don't reform the police, because cops die.
Exactly.
Every time a cop dies, it's a threat to our freedom. It's a threat to America, and that's why we always have to back the blue, no matter what they do. Me and you. Blue and your clues. All right.
Yeah, blue and your clues. But can you
Full
imagine
circle.
if like Black Lives Matter had like tried to do that? Had this big like parade, and they were like, "Hey, can we use your parking lot?" And the guy was like, "No." Like, do you think that they would have fucking canceled him the same way these people who supposedly hate cancel culture would have? I just feel like it's
Well,
it's
the guy.
just ridiculous.
The community would have rallied to the guy's help.
Probably.
Like,
they would have been like, "Yeah, fuck these guys."
this guy literally probably has no alignment, and he's just like trying to fucking own a business. And in an alternate timeline, Black Lives Matter is like, we're holding a funeral for an activist that was shot down. Can we use your parking lot for overflow or something, or for a speech from this leader? And he'd be like, no thanks. And then they would be like, oh, it sucks that happened. We'll find another place. But then the community would be like, fuck them. These terrorists are trying to take over this guy's business. Every Long Islander is that Italian dude from Spider-Man 1. Now, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. You gonna pick on a guy trying to save a bunch of kids? That was a very formative film in my life.
Yes.
Not formative enough for me to remember the first line of the film over you, however. That constant disagreement we had that you were proven right about every time.
Was I really?
Yeah, the story of my life is not for the faint of heart. And I always thought it was, my story is not for the faint of heart. And you were like, dude, I'm sure it's the story of my life. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's not.
That's hilarious.
Let's see if your intuition serves you well now. How many new reviews do you think we have to read this week?
I would say 1 minus 1.
Absolutely correct. Your intuition served you well. 1 minus 1, 0. But if you want a review read in your name at the top of the podcast, all you have to do is go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. Many folks have decided to critique us while also leaving 5-star reviews, which absolutely
neg us a little bit. It's fine.
Yeah. Neg us. Make us earn it. Mystery is out there. But yes, we will also mention your name and shout you out if you're into that. But if not, that's okay. Just letting you all know also that you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, and just subscribe, rate, and review. It means a lot to us. But with that, we are ready to get into our first BatMonth episode. Ty, you ready to bring in that theme song?
I'm ready to bring it in.
Welcome back to the Politipop Podcast, the podcast where we read between the lines of our favorite pop culture media and discuss the social and political themes within. I am your co-host, Mike Booch, a.k.a. ACAB, All Cops Are Batman, a.k.a. the Soy Boy Pseudo Intellectual, and in the second seat, as always, is my lovely co-host, Ty.
Hello.
All right. Now, Ty, this is our first episode of BatMonth. We decided to take it upon ourselves, since Batman Day is in the month of May, rhyme unintentional, that we were going to do an entire month long of Batman episodes. A very popular decision just after May the 4th, Star Wars Day, which is not, I wouldn't even say just an international holiday, but an intergalactic holiday, and we have not acknowledged it at all.
No, we haven't. I mean, listen, we did Rogue One, and Star Wars is kind of divisive these days, right? I mean, people hate the new trilogy or they love it, and I fucking hated it, so I wasn't feeling Star Wars this year. That's right, it's a personal thing. I picked Batman month because Batman Day is just not enough, and we really love Batman.
And I did watch Bad Batch, and
nice.
That Batch was bad.
Ooh, really?
No, in a good way. That's one bad batch. Like
okay.
The Shaft.
It sounded like you're like it was
theme song.
bad. Eesh.
It's awesome. After you finish Clone Wars, go to this, and you will. They do great.
You're exposing my nerd. Guys, I have like a season and a half left. It's not like I haven't watched any Clone Wars.
He's a fucking casual,
all right,
folks.
and I have the entire Gendry Tavarsky, however you say his name, and did Samurai Jack. I have his whole Clone Wars on DVD.
Gendy Tartakovsky?
Right? Yeah, that's how you say it.
Gendry Baratheon.
Akira Toriyama.
Yeah, you know what? I also have it. It's on Disney Plus. You casual son of a bitch.
Guess what? It wasn't on Disney Plus at first.
No, they just put it up. Yeah.
I know they just put it up. So anyway, I just want people to know I do love Star Wars. I'm sorry.
He really does, folks. The name Jason Solo never would have left my lips if I hadn't met this handsome son of a bitch on the other side of the podcast.
Thanks, guy.
All right, so we are reviewing Sean Murphy's Batman, White Knight, and Curse of the White Knight series. And I'll also throw in a little bit about Harley Quinn, which is a series within that universe, which I haven't finished, but I read a couple of issues, so I can speak to that a little bit at the end. But this is at the beginning of Batman month, and this is rough for me because I am a huge Batman fan. Ever since I was 18 years old, but I made up for a lot of lost time, and a lot of this podcast is going to be, a lot of this whole month is going to be me viewing Batman through a more critical lens than I ever have before, and I think in order for us to enjoy the lore of Batman, we have to accept a lot of stuff. We have to suspend a lot of disbelief, and that is that whatever version of the DC universe law and justice system there is, it works best when Batman is involved, because in our world it definitely would not. Anything else we want to add to that disclaimer, Ty?
No, I mean, I think we're going to discuss a lot of the problems with Batman and Bruce Wayne, but I think the idea behind Batman is that law enforcement doesn't work, right? And that's why Batman exists. He had to create something that would protect the people because the police weren't. And I think we can all agree that we would love to have somebody kind of looking out for us right now as police continue to brutalize, black people in particular, but people of all types here in the United States. So, we'll say that. But we're definitely we're gonna tear Batman apart. Don't worry.
Yeah, we really are, especially as we're looking at this through a more anti-capitalist lens, and I do want to give it a lot of props, and I will throughout it. But this is the second Sean Murphy piece that we are reviewing. We did Punk Rock Jesus last month, so not long ago at all. And, we really commended him on the fact that he could write and draw. And this is a whole other level that he brings to the table, and taking one of DC's biggest characters. I was going to say DC's biggest character, arguably, and really turning it on its head. And he got to make his own canon for this. Like, this takes all of the best parts or the most favorite parts of the writer and puts them together. So he'll take from the animated series, he'll take from the '89 version with Tim Burton, he'll take from various parts of the lore and put them in here, and he does so in a way that it's fresh and and it allows for a unique story. So for those of you who are new to this, just know that this isn't really taking from, it's not going to fit in with any of the canon or the Batman.
Yeah, it's not main continuity at all, but I think it's the modern Batman tale we kind of needed.
Yes, and this came out when? I want to say 2016?
Batman White Knight came out in 2017, and they finished in 2018. So I guess, because it was issued, released as issues, obviously, so...
Yeah. Well, it started in October. I remember that because when it was releasing, that's when I met Sean Murphy at Comic-Con back when we could be around humans, and it was around the time of my birthday. And I remember I got 5 issue 1s. I got like 2 that were signed by him. Guys, you can buy them, let me know. Find us at politipodcast@gmail.com. They are near mint condition, if not mint, because I've really never touched them. I got 2 that were personalized to me, and then I got a special like variant cover that only he was selling. That was also
I got that too.
To me.
I think I got that too. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm also going to say this at the top too, in case I forget later on, that, just as an artist, and I know that you as a reader, we both really appreciate Sean Murphy's style, and just seeing him finally get to work on Batman, because he's worked on Batman a couple times, but this is like, he takes such a unique approach in giving him chaps and weightlifting gloves and these tiny little blades on his forearm. Like he would look terrible if we saw him in real life. Like he would look like a ridiculous Batman, but his style alone just really makes it work.
And props to DC for allowing a story like this to be told, because I think they touch on some really political and economical stuff that I don't know if all comic readers would be ready to embrace. But overall, I think it was received pretty positively and got some really good reviews.
And I remember at the time I was like, oh, this is kind of relevant. It doesn't hit you over the head with it. But like reading it again, I mean, it's really hard to miss to miss the allegory that Murphy's making here. But the one thing I didn't expect was, in reading it again, to view Batman as the police. Yeah. And that's how I went into it this time. But I think, before we get into it any more, Ty, do you want to give them the plot?
Set in a world where the clown prince of crime has been cured of his madness, Batman White Knight follows the man now known as Jack Napier as he embarks on a quest to heal the city he once terrorized. After reconciling with his long-suffering partner, Harley Quinn, he sets in motion a carefully plotted campaign to discredit the one person whom he views as Gotham City's true enemy, Batman. His crusade exposes a decades-long history of corruption within the Gotham City Police Department and transforms Napier into a city councilman and civic hero. But when the sins of his past return to threaten everything that he has accomplished, the distinctions between Savior and Destroyer begin to break down for both the Joker and Batman alike, and with them any hope for Gotham's future. And I feel like that's a good enough for Curse too. I'm not gonna.
That's the podcast, baby. That's
I'm not going to read the description of Curse because I feel like it's a continuation of that plot.
One thing we also have to realize in this canon is that the Joker never really committed any crimes other than robbing a bank, of which he did 10 years for, and since then the GCPD has made it their goal to I want to say disenfranchise, but while I was learning a little bit about gentrification for this podcast, just to make sure I could at least use the word correctly, let alone maybe explain it to you listeners, once again, well, not once again, but the first time this episode, we will have all of our sources and things that we're referencing in our show notes and sources, which you can find at politipoppodcast.wordpress.com. So if there's anything that you'd wish for us to expound upon, you can visit our show notes and sources in order to. Don't let us know. Visit our show notes and sources.
I do want to throw out there, he did kidnap a child and assault him though. I know, like, he didn't go to jail for it.
But he was never convicted of it, okay?
Yeah.
And I just want everyone to know that. The guy who, the key witness in his case ended up hanging himself in his maximum security prison cell. And he left the letters DT scribbled in blood at the crime scene, which is like, don't tell, something like that. But yeah, so while I was learning a bit about gentrification, they kept using this word, which was disinvestment instead of disenfranchisement. And I really like that term because that's really what we're trying to say, right? That and this is what the story is trying to tell us as well, is that there are certain neighborhoods and certain communities in which people invest in and other ones in which people don't invest in. And that's what we mean when we say disenfranchisement. So the Joker is a disenfranchised individual in this story, and therefore he's able to connect with the rest of them. I think that if I were to view this, if we're looking at themes or direct allegories, I would view Jack Napier as like the people, as the disenfranchised, and then we have Batman, in my opinion, is the police. Did you want to go through story-wise? Did you want to go through character-wise? How are you feeling this, Mr. Ty?
I mean, let's discuss what you just mentioned. How do you view Batman as the police? Because I mean, I kind of see where you're coming from, but it is interesting because in the story he's at odds with the police for kind of the first time since the beginning of like the Batman mythos, right? Like he refuses to join them and work with this whole new plan that they have set up, where they're working with like some of his allies. So how do you view him as the police?
All right, so I know that, and thank you for pointing it out, that it's a weird distinction to make because there are literal police in the actual story. Yeah. But here's how Batman represents the police, and it is that he doesn't know the damage that he's doing. We see that at the beginning of the story, he's chasing down the Joker, who at this point is just out of Arkham. Like, that's the only thing he's done. He stole a scooter, and Batman's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, so he's trying to apprehend the Joker. He's going on rooftops, which we'll talk about that in next week's episode as well. That's where that thing originates. And he's injuring people at construction sites, all to find the Joker, all to get this guy. And just that first bit there kind of reminds me of how, every time a black man runs away, that he has to be shot, even though he's not really posing a threat. That it's like what's important is that this person listens to us and that we catch them by any means necessary, because we don't want our authority to be in question. And I think that that's a big part of Batman's character in this story. He's not the most perfect Batman, and honestly, I'm here for it. So we have him, really just caring about getting the Joker, regardless of what the Joker has actually done. Yeah. Obviously, there's the brutality angle. We see that he beats the living shit out of the Joker at the beginning. The actual police, all they do is watch. It's recorded on camera. And as Batman is shoveling pills down the Joker's throat, the last two words he says before passing out are, "can't breathe." So I'm like, oh, okay, but just not even just in the story in particular. I mean, kind of, led by it, but the Batman lore as a whole is problematic in the fact that this boy has taken it upon himself to wage a one-man war against crime. And depending on the lore, like in the Nolan trilogy, which we'll talk about next week, he says that he lost a lot of preconceptions about the difference between right and wrong when he first had to steal so he wouldn't starve. But we don't know that this is a Batman who's ever done that all the comic book Batmans are aware of that. All we know is that they want to stop crime because crime took their family. I'm sorry, I'm talking about multiple Batman, but there's a lot of multiverses. Sorry, but Batman wants to stop crime because, quote unquote, crime took his family. But what really took his family was the desperation that creates crime. What really took his family was the terrible conditions in Gotham City. Being a young white male of privilege, he cannot reconcile with that. And just as the same as in this story, Batman is in his war on crime is actually benefiting the 1%. He's benefiting the rich and the wealthy who are really pulling the strings and benefiting from his war on the poor. Because who commits crimes in Gotham? The poor people do. And obviously very well-educated super criminals who are a bit unhinged. But other than that, it's your people, this dude trying to pay his rent, so he works for the Penguin, and then he gets his fucking wrist broken, for being lookout. Like, it's the poor of Gotham, and Batman really can't see that. And,
No,
Murphy...
can't.
Murphy recognizes that. It's been recognized in the animated series, from which he's drawing a lot of reference, in which you remember the day that Dick Grayson left Batman. It was one of the things that led to that happening was Batman just beating the shit out of this guy in front of his kid and not realizing that he needed the money to provide for his family. Right. I feel like I've said enough. What do you have, Ty? Give it.
No, I think that's some really good observations, and I think one of the things that makes Jack so effective, right, in this comic is that he kind of gets in the trenches with the people. He goes to
Backport.
Yes, Backport. Thank you. And he goes there and he talks to the people there, right? Like he literally goes there himself. He doesn't send somebody. He doesn't make empty promises. He actually goes there. He gets to know the people that live there. He figures out how to help them, how to build better community centers and things that will actually help the neighborhood. And this is something that Bruce Wayne could have been doing almost his entire life, right? I mean, he's been a billionaire his whole life, and he inherited this money very young. And he obviously, I would say Bruce Wayne is not a bad person by any means. He thinks he's doing the right thing, right? He in his mind, he is the hero, and his way of doing it is by dressing like a bat and beating the shit out of criminals. But if he had actually taken right, he had actually taken the time to get to know these people and put money back into the community. And this is, I think an argument we see all the time, especially for abolishing the police, right? Like one of the ways that people say you can do this is if you make it so that homelessness and poverty are not the bottom line, or not the thing you have to worry about. If everyone knows they're going to have, like healthcare and a home, and they're going to, have their basic needs met, a lot of crime will disappear, because a lot of people are forced into crime, right, to make ends meet, whether it's joining a gang or robbing a place or whatever it's because they just don't have what they need. And I think, that would cut it down tremendously. And this is something that Bruce Wayne could do for his city. Maybe not for the whole country, but he could definitely do it for Gotham City. He can make Gotham City a utopia if he really wanted to, and truly make a difference in the lives of these people. And how many times throughout Batman comics do we see all these like the goons, right, the thugs that are working for like Harvey Dent and the Joker and Penguin? They're all just trying to make money. Like they just need some money. Like they're not really like trying to be like supervillains. They're just like, oh, I heard you pay well. And I need money to put food on my table. And this is something that, Jack definitely gets, and he uses it. He kind of weaponizes it against Batman, and Jack does a lot of good, but he also is very manipulative, it turns out, as the story goes along, and he kind of uses this. He turns the people against Batman for his own benefit, but at the end of the day, you could argue it's ends justify the means, because he exposes a lot of corruption, and he also does really help a lot of people. We also find out that as intelligent as Batman, as Bruce Wayne is, there's a lot of things going on under his own, under his nose that he's not realizing, right? Like the way the money's being spent in Gotham, and the fact that there's, a fund basically set up to pay for the damages of Batman. Like it's costing all this money to repair the homes and, the city after Batman fucking destroys it, because he doesn't care about driving on someone's roof or breaking through their window or, blowing something up in their neighborhood. Like he doesn't see the bigger picture. He's very, it's black and white with him. And whoever he's going after, he's going to stop at nothing to get them. And, we see this from the very beginning with the Joker, and this, ultimately leads to Jack using this to kind of show that Batman is destructive and not helping Gotham City. In fact, he's making it worse.
Yeah, the Batman Devastation Fund really speaks to me, because about how it's constantly siphoning money from taxpayers in order to clean up damage that's been created. But to me, it's kind of like how, we are always, as taxpayers, giving ridiculous amounts of money to the police and the military just to continuing their destruction of poor communities.
Right.
And, so if we do go with that analogy of Batman is a cop, and also these 1%, they are using, they're using Batman's war on crime to gentrify neighborhoods. He ruins a neighborhood, and then they come in, buy it at dirt cheap, because nobody's going to want to live there. They renovate it, they build it up, and then they sell it at an incredible profit margin. So Batman, just by he's creating more crime because he's creating more poor people. And it's just, once again, like you said, he has good intentions, but he would never realize this. He would be the one who says, Joe Chill killed my parents. regardless, depending on what universe you want to go into. And he would say that Joe Chill is a bad guy, criminals are bad guys, but not what created Joe Chill, the desperation that created him. He would never think to put the money back into the community or to provide his resources to the Gotham City Police Department. And, you mentioned how their relationship is tenuous at best, but at this point in the comic book, we see that they've been working together for so long. Like, he wouldn't help out his buddy Jim Gordon, who's putting his life on the line every day. Like, he wouldn't be like, hey, dude, here's a fucking bat suit.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's been holding back all of this advanced tech and weaponry. Not that I would agree with arming the police department like this, but, let's say for argument's sake that Jim Gordon...
Gotham City Police Department in this comic book specifically, folks.
Yeah, Jim Gordon is a good guy, right? He really they always kind of portray Jim Gordon as someone who wants to make a difference. He believes in helping people. He doesn't stand for corruption. He doesn't take bribes, right? Like, he's very true to his character. And he's always kind of felt that he needs to work with Batman because he can't trust the people in his own department. And the fact that, after all these years working together, that Batman still doesn't trust him enough to provide this kind of, assistance is pretty telling of the distrustful nature, I think, that just Bruce has in general. And, after the police department kind of turns against him, we see actually like Batman's family, right? Like Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, and Dick Grayson, Nightwing begin to work within the police department, right? And they start utilizing the resources of Batman and giving it to the police department and working within its ranks and trying to make a difference there. And an argument can be made, I think, both ways for whether or not that's good or bad. But if I think at the end of the day, if you're trying to stop crime and you really want to stop it, legally for the most part, you probably need to help provide evidence, things that will stand up in a court of law. Because, as far as it seems, Batman just beats the shit out of people and leaves them like,
leaves them. He doesn't even leave it like, oh, here's the crime he was committing. He's just like...
Yeah, like, imagine like being a cop, like, what the fuck do I do with this? Like, what the fuck?
There's just assault victims all over the place.
Yeah, and they just keep throwing them into like fucking Arkham Asylum and Blackgate Prison, the most terrible fucking places ever that Batman could totally use his money to fix and make more secure and better doctors.
Like, they pay the security so bad there that like it takes nothing to bribe them to let people out. But I like that you mentioned that Dick and Barbara end up working with the GCPD because that's another distinction we have to make, is that Barbara is the daughter of a cop and Dick was a circus boy. Like, he is working class. So they see things from a much different viewpoint than Bruce ever could or would even want to see. And
exactly. Yeah, I mean, they make that pretty clear that, even though Dick was raised by Bruce, he's never had that silver spoon mentality, right? Like, he's very much, and I think he's always kind of portrayed this way as somebody who has to do things for himself, doesn't just like handouts. He likes to, to earn things. He's even been portrayed as a police in other comics, and he very much doesn't see the world the way Bruce does. And I think Bruce is just, you would kind of sometimes associate this with the police, being too violent, but Bruce is very violent. Batman is extremely violent. And I think he's almost too violent even for his own Bat family, right? They just, like, they think he goes too far. And he's taking his war on crime to the next level, and there's more to it than just that, right? There's also, we find out the guilt that Bruce has that Jason Todd was abducted by Joker. And he never found out what happened to him. He doesn't know if he's alive or dead. The Joker never told him. So there's always that kind of...
And also that Alfred's dying, too. We find out that that's another reason why, like, Bruce is a little more unhinged in this.
Yeah, there's a lot of things eating at him, that his own failures that are kind of, unfortunately, being manifested in the way he takes on crime. And he unfortunately does this in front of cameras. He does it in front of people. He does it in front of everybody. He doesn't really seem to care who sees him, brutalize people left and right. So it obviously does not work out well for him in the public eye.
Well, that's the scary thing about Batman is that the cops won't hold him accountable. So who holds this guy accountable? Who holds this person accountable who has all of the resources in the world, all of this tech, all of these weapons? Like, you know, it could take a very bad day and he's a very different type of protector. And I think that is, you know, that's the most frightening part. You know, I want to read this bit from Napier, which once again, amazing that they let him use the name Jack Napier, which was an original for the 1989 Batman film. Amazing that they let him use it, but Jack Napier, formerly the Joker, has, you know, gone sane. He's on his meds. He hit the books, and he's now pleading for his freedom. And he says, "Truth is, I was just a kid from the country who wanted to be a Gothamite, and when things didn't work out, I screwed up and robbed a bank. I served 10 years for my crime, but they didn't want to release me. Because to them, I wasn't just a criminal, I was an excuse. My reputation and unstable mental condition made me a perfect candidate for their scheme. They claimed to give me meds and therapy, but really, they were making me worse, turning me into the boogeyman they needed. That way the gatekeepers could get more money from Gotham. They created a new source of revenue, a booming industry no one had ever considered, crime." And I want to stop there real quick, but I'm going to continue. That right there, you know, speaks to, you know, our entire justice system, how it's always about not helping the criminals, but about, you know, just holding them. And, you know, the prison industrial complex is a very real thing, and it profits off of imprisoning people. Majority, you know, black and brown people, you know, they are imprisoned at, last I checked, 3 times the rate as those of white people. And, you know, you can bet your ass that a lot of those white people probably aren't in great financial situations as well. So, you know, and that this entire justice system, the recidivism rate is so high because it's not meant to reform anybody. It's meant to keep it a revolving door. So the Joker right here is very representative of that, at least in my reading of this. Let me get back to this part. He says, "And each time the city questioned the exorbitant funding, the gatekeepers let the Joker escape, reigniting taxpayer fear. And soon they had enough to build their crown jewel, turning old Fort Arkham into Arkham Asylum. I might have put on the eyeliner, but Arkham created the Joker. I'm not the only victim here. We all are. The gatekeepers convinced us that Gotham was a special city with special problems, that due process didn't work in Gotham. And for years, we've accepted this uneasy pact while they made this into a city of fear, where corruption is spread all the way to the top, a place where vigilantism has been normalized." You know, so I think that's, you know, that's pretty poignant stuff right there. That, you know, there are certain communities that they don't really care about making better. They are, you know, communities which they continually make worse. How many people go in prison and come out worse than they were before? And it's like, this is why we need more police, because of these psychos, because of all these criminals, because of all these, you know, of all these savages who are out on the streets. That's why we need more police, and we need more funding, and we need more prisons, and we need more locks, and we need the death penalty. Like, it's so easy to parade that stuff out in front of us once again while ignoring the cause of these things and say, all right, well, I have this hammer to beat down the nail, you know, but you're not worrying about the analogy fell apart after the nail, but you know, where does the nail come from? Damn it. Maybe it wanted to be a screw its whole life and you turned it into a nail.
Sons of bitches. Yeah. I mean, Napier he's really interesting in this work. And I think, he's most interesting in maybe his interactions with Harley Quinn, because we kind of find out that there's 2 Harley Quinns. There's the one that he's most currently been working with as the Joker, but she's not the original, right? The original Harley Quinn was the Doctor, who I think met him in Arkham and fell in love with him, but they actually haven't been together for some time now, and he basically replaced her with this very young, kind of sexy Harley Quinn that's been more portrayed of late, with Margot Robbie and those kind of appearances of her. But there's kind of this.
Although Robbie does seem to be reclaiming a more authentic version of Harley Quinn after Birds of Prey and putting herself into it. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see. We'll see what Suicide Squad 2 or 3 or whatever the fuck Suicide it is
Squad.
Yeah. Whatever they're calling it with John Cena. We'll see how she's portrayed, but but
we won't see John Cena. Okay, sorry.
Nice. John Cena. Yeah, so the way these two Harley Quinns kind of view him is very interesting to me. The newer one loves the Joker. She wants this chaotic, anarchist, and will do whatever it takes to kind of get him back. And the original, Harleen Quinzel, the Doctor, she wants Jack Napier. She actually is in love with him. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but she mentions how, she kind of always saw that part of him, even when he was the Joker. And she always believed that, he was in there, and that she could kind of, help him find who he truly was again.
I want to take this moment just to bring it up because, Joker and Harley's relationship has been under scrutiny, especially since, Harley did go live action with Suicide Squad. And I just want to say that their dynamic in this book is great to read, but also it's very telling. I can speak as somebody who has been a toxic partner in the past. That it's very easy for people to cling on to the good parts of you, even though you're not the same person. But also I think that it says a lot that Harleen Quinzel, the original Harley Quinn, left. And she likes the healthy version. She likes Jack Napier. And as somebody who's also been going through a lot of mental health issues, turns out my entire life, I've only been aware of it the past year, that Jack Napier isn't desirable because he's perfect and he no longer has issues. He's desirable because he's working on himself and because he is willing to be that best part of himself for his family. So just keep that in mind when we, just when you think about the Joker, when you think about your own relationships, past, present, future, and when we think about their relationship specifically in this comic book, I think they, or in this story, whatever you want to call it, in this piece, this work, they do a pretty good job of representing a healthier dynamic, one that's a bit more give and take, one that's more 50-50, in which, both of them are really getting something out of it, and it's not just a one-way thing, and Harley has a lot more agency in this story as well.
I think Sean Murphy definitely, does a good job showing that Joker was extremely abusive, and while Harleen was able to get out, this newer Harley Quinn has not. She's been victimized by him to the point where, she doesn't really have her own identity anymore. She kind of becomes a Joker 2.0 in order to get him back, to win him back, She thinks is the love of her life, and, kind of the sins of his past, as they say, is kind of what becomes the ultimate problem in this comic, because he kind of has beaten Batman throughout these issues. He does kind of win over the people, and Batman's really up against the ropes, but what he did to this new Harley Quinn, causes her to kind of turn on Gotham City and start claiming lives, in order to bring him back, and forces Jack to kind of work with Batman in a way I don't think he intended to, but he understands that, in order to make up for his own sins and what he's done, he needs to work with Batman. It's the only way for him to do it. And it's Harleen who kind of, I think, really is the hero of the story, because without her, I don't think Jack or Batman would be willing to work with one another. She's kind of the one that gets in between them a lot. And I think they both kind of trust her and care about her very much. And, she's kind of the voice of reason, and we eventually learn that she's the one who, I believe, actually, found this medicine that would cure Jack, right? And kind of orchestrated this entire thing to kind of fix things, to fix Jack, to fix Gotham, to even help Batman in a way. There's a lot of things that Batman, needed, like such as closure on Jason Todd. I think, he's finally able to get it from Jack towards the end, and Harleen's the one that kind of orchestrates a lot of these moves And without her, there really wouldn't be probably a happy-ish ending, if you want to call it, or at least a victory for the citizens of Gotham City.
Yeah, it seems like this series has all just been a prequel so he could set up the Harley Quinn story.
Right.
Because in Curse of the White Knight, she takes on an even bigger role, and Sean Murphy hands the reins to Katana Collins and another artist. And he's still very much involved. The art is very similar. The writing is similar as well, because he worked on the story with Katana Collins, but she's writing it, and it's pretty awesome. It's kind of like Silence of the Lambs, but instead of Clarice Starling, you have Harley Quinn, or actually instead of Will Graham, you have Harley Quinn, because it's like, only she can solve these murders, because she has been on the side of both, the as a psychiatrist, but she's also seen the criminal element up close and has been part of it. So, it's pretty awesome. It's a nice little mystery, and they really do a fun work with her, and they don't shy away from using, any of the other characters from the story, like Bruce or others.
Nice. I have not, unfortunately, read any of the Harley Quinn comic, but I'd like to. It's on my list.
Another thing I want to bring up here, and I feel like we're really not covering the story as a whole. Like, there are a lot of really great parts in here, so we do encourage you to read them. Like, we're really just doing the
luckily for you, there's
strokes.
not as many spoilers, because we're talking more about themes than
seriously,
than
right? We
specific
really
plot
haven't
points.
gone into anything specific. But he took this scene directly out of the animated series. But he took a lot of them. Yeah, this idea that the Joker and Batman are now going to have to work together. Now, it's against Neo Joker, who was the Harley Quinn, the new Harley Quinn turned new Joker or whatever. This kind of tells me that a revolution is probably right, because Jack makes it a point, like, he runs for councilman, he gets this the neighborhood of Backport against against the elites and at his back. By the way, Backport, which all of the rich people at Bruce's function, who he ends up punching in the face, because once again, he doesn't know he's doing any of this shit. He's just ignorant. Those rich people call Backport Blackport, because of all the black people that dominate the community.
And Batman doesn't see color, so he's...
I think once again, huge problem. Batman literally doesn't see color. But we see that Joker tries, or Jack Napier tries to work within the system. And even then, because of the way Gotham is with its supercrime and all this other stuff, like, it doesn't work. And so, eventually the Joker has to kind of come back to be able to combat Neo Joker. And I think it just shows that, in the end, that there has to be a different way, a different system. And, Joker even says at the very beginning of the story, he tells Batman that, the only reason they accept you is because they're terrified of me. That the idea of chaos is more threatening than the idea of one man being able to swoop out of the sky at any time and beating you within an inch of your life for doing a wrong thing, as far as he judges. Another thing really quick that we kind of touched on too is that the super crime that is plaguing Gotham is all the more reason for him to share his resources with the GCPD, because they're average people, more or less, putting themselves in the way of this super crime. If anything, Batman needs less resources or fewer resources, because he has, more know-how.
Right.
Just putting that out there.
One thing we didn't mention was probably Dr. Freeze, right?
Yeah, it turns out he was a Nazi, or his family were Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little more than just to that. The fact that Bruce finds out that his father was working with Victor Von Freeze, and there's a moment, I think, in the comic where you're not sure if the Waynes were actually Nazis, right, or Nazi sympathizers. But eventually you do learn that Victor himself was not a Nazi, and it was a little more complicated than that, and that Bruce's father kind of gave him opportunities to start over and try to do some good with the technology that they were using in Germany. and so it wasn't as nefarious as it seems. But unfortunately, Victor's technology gets turned into a weapon that Neo Joker uses, and kind of all the pieces start to come together. For it to be weaponized against the city of Gotham itself.
Yeah, thank you very much for expounding on that. That's definitely powerful stuff. Like the thought that, we'll find out in Curse of the White Knight, but the thought that Bruce's family may not be who he thought they were, and we mentioned it in our Grinch episode after the Batman Returns episode, that it's difficult for people of a certain class to really retain their humanity or retain even a similar level of humanity to what the rest of us are really living. And I think that the stories that do go into that with Batman are really strongest for highlighting that fact. Scott Snyder has also made it a point in all of his stories to, make it that Bruce is trying to be more of a philanthropist, and and one of his sidekicks is actually a black boy from Gotham whose parents are driven insane by the Joker. And Snyder, I think, is trying to make Batman a little more human with the way he writes him. But
definitely,
for the most part, it's just difficult when you do look at the logistics of someone like this. No, I would not want an actual Batman in this world, because it could be Jeff Bezos with karate.
I mean, like you said, Duke Thomas, right, in Scott Snyder's Batman is an ally of Bruce Wayne's and kind of taken under his wing. But in this story, they're very much at odds, because Duke's he's from Backport, and, he teams up with Jack. He endorses Jack, and his, Duke's interesting too, because he kind of keeps his neighborhood in check, right? He keeps a lot of the gangs and some of the criminals from kind of spilling out and hurting more people, and keeps people, grounded, and tries to give them what they need. And he realizes that teaming with Jack, they can kind of highlight this dirty secret of keeping all these people, poor and struggling, and kind of make a bigger name of it, a bigger show of it, and maybe actually get them some help. And, he chooses to work with Jack there. And just to kind of wrap up, I guess, White Knight, so we can move on to Curse. At the end, Joker and Batman.
Well, we'll talk about that in a sec. I realize it's been an hour, and we are both tired and a little older than we ever wanted to admit to. So, but like you said, let's wrap up this part. Let's wrap up White Knight.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Joker does resurface. Jack's not able to keep him at bay, and he does stop Neo Joker and kind of helps save Gotham City. He even sacrifices himself to save Harleen, and he makes some great choices, even though we do find out that he was manipulating the city a bit, right? Doesn't he destroy the library in Backport and kind of frames it on Batman or on the police, if I'm remembering correctly. I know you've read it a little more recently.
The broad strokes, and I only want to mention it because it's kind of genius, is that Jack Napier uses Clayface and the Mad Hatter to control the entire super criminal element of Gotham. Yeah. And so he's able to stage these attacks and stuff. Which one of those attacks is at the library that Jack Napier is himself building. I think that he I'm gonna back him up. I bet you don't back up Carly Morgenthau for as long as you have, as long as I have on this podcast, and not empathize with Jack Napier in this story, because I don't believe he actually takes any lives. He only destroys property, and in doing so, he outlines the faults in the system, and that system can also be Batman. He says very specifically that, Batman, I don't remember the event specifically, but he says specifically, I won't, that Batman really doesn't care about protecting the people or whatever. He really only cares about fighting crime his way. There are multiple times in the story in which he shows that. Just because you mentioned it, Batman, puts it in Jack Napier's face also. He Jack Napier's listen, I saved this city. I showed everybody, what the deal really was, and I held the GCPD accountable. And Batman says, but you broke the law to do it. And Jack Napier goes, so do you! Like,
yeah, like, come on, man, what the fuck, right?
Like people are forgetting that Batman is the one who's breaking the law in the first place, that his war on crime is not above board, that it's technically not even ethical. And, let's bring it back to the police brutality argument, right? There's all these questions of, did this person deserve to be shot in cold blood? Did they deserve to be killed? What crime did they commit that made them worthy of being punished or put down? Doesn't matter. Cops aren't supposed to fucking kill people. They're not the jury nor the executioner.
Yep.
They're not even the fucking judge. They're supposed to be the taxi ride that gets them behind bars and then to the stand to, for their defense. That's all they're supposed to fucking be. Batman is not supposed to exist. So it doesn't matter exactly what he does right or what he does wrong. Everything he does is technically wrong. And I'm saying that with all the love in my heart. I have 2 Batman tattoos, people. You have to understand
we love
that this is coming
man.
from a very loving place.
But we got to call a spade here. And
we do.
And I think Jack Napier is totally successful in what he set out to do, and that's to highlight the corruption and highlight Batman's faults, and he does so quite well. And I think he actually makes Batman Bruce Wayne a better person by the end of the story. Bruce has a letter from Alfred who died, and he's been afraid to read it, and he finally, kind of, as he's been pushing people away, he embraces his family at the end, right? He kind of pulls Barbara and Dick, a little bit closer and tells them, what they kind of mean to him, and they read that letter from Alfred together, and he even reveals himself to Jim Gordon and tells him his identity, because he realizes he needs to tackle this with a new approach. He needs to stop doing things the way he had at the beginning of the story. And even though Jack has been lost to the Joker, the lessons that he kind of taught everyone, including Batman, are still there. And I think that's kind of great in that regard. We definitely see that Jack made an impact on this city and all of the people there, Batman included.
Yeah, it very much is reminiscent, at least to me, of the 2020 Sanders campaign. I think there were a lot of there are a lot of comparisons to be drawn between Jack Napier and Sanders, and the biggest one right now is that they both failed ultimately. They both had to unite with an enemy in order to defeat what they considered to be a more unknown and larger enemy. At least Napier showed the citizens of Gotham that the power really is in their hands, and that they don't have to be afraid. They don't have to depend on a single person to protect their city.
No, you're right. The way Bernie Sanders kind of made socialism and Medicare for all like household conversations, Jack Napier kind of did the same, and in Curse we ultimately see what became of the things he did, but. I guess you're right. He did in a way fail. He wasn't able to do this all without working with Batman. He had to give in and kind of do that.
Yeah, he did.
Just like Bernie had to work with fucking Biden. God damn
Bernie, no.
Bernie, no!
But yeah, dude. My favorite thing about this story as a whole. Do you want to just try and do Curse next week? Because
it's up to you. I don't care. Or we don't even have to do Curse.
Curse is literally the same story, but also how do we treat our vets? It's very true. It's the same
story. And the Bruce Wayne family stuff is good. I like that a lot.
It is. Does it speak to any social, political? Maybe it does.
It does, but we don't necessarily have to go into it.
Well, we'll do we'll keep them guessing. Be like, next week we'll either do Curse of the White Knight or Batman Begins. Figure it out, fuckers. We're gonna make you work as the listener of this podcast. This story, my favorite thing about it is that it really just, it sparks this discussion, it sparks this dialogue. And I think that it also causes us to question our heroes, which if we go back to the very beginning of this podcast while we were just talking about stuff, that's what we have to do. Even if you see someone as a hero, you still have to question them and hold them accountable. And that is what this story is all about. It's about holding
no one's
Batman
above reproach, right? Not one single person.
Exactly. I think it succeeds in telling that story. And, I think that, there isn't really a police brutality storyline in here, but I think, once again, all you have to do is look at Batman as the police, and it's there. Bullock even says, like, if he were wearing a badge, you would have had him booked for assault. But also the Gotham Police Department has had multiple issues with it, which they do bring up, and they say that Gordon was kind of cleaning up the department, but it's still difficult, and it shows because the people are so ready to rally behind Napier. In a way, he kind of also, I don't know, I got some Fred Hampton vibes, kind of. Just in the whole like backport idea,
right.
Kind of like it was Rainbow Coalition-y to me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel that.
So I'm for that, guys. Gals, two spirits, non-binary, and
friends of the podcast,
and even enemies. Next week we will probably cover some of Curse of the White Knight, because, in all honesty, I know this host would need to just watch a review video in order to get the important parts down. Which is what he also kind of had to do for this one. It just so helps that I fucking love this story, and a lot of it stuck with me as well. But yeah, and also probably Batman Begins. So that's next week. We're going to be doing the Nolan movies this month. As a Batman fan, these movies were kind of what solidified the idea of what Batman was supposed to be, at least the first two. And then I did a lot of comic book related research in between, and that's what allowed me to be very disappointed in the third.
Are we doing these as individuals, or are we still doing it as one whole thing?
But yeah, so I was just thinking every week, except we'll see how next week goes with Curse of the White Knight, folks. But you have all been absolutely awesome. If you want to know where to find us, you can get us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review, please. Makes a huge difference. Helps us in the algorithm. You can find us on Twitter at PolitiPopPod, Instagram at PolitiPopPodcast. You can even email us at politipopcast@gmail.com. To buy those Sean Murphy signed issue 1 of Batman White Knights, to buy my illegal WandaVision shirt, or just to let us know how much you hate the fucking podcast. You can find our show notes and sources at politipoppodcast.wordpress.com. And as always, folks, special thanks to all of you, and to Antonia Chava for logo design, whose cat seems to be on the mend.
Woo!
All right.
Good.
For the Politipop podcast, I have been Mike Booch.
I have been Ty.
And remember, no matter what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're listening to, please never stop thinking, never stop learning, and always remember to read between the lines.
And scene.
Thank you. Terry! All right. I know, the whole episode I should have been going, all right, everybody, so here's why Jack Napier.